Today I'm going to be showing you how to take stuff from Blender and put it directly into Unreal Tournament. And this is something you can do today. The game is available to download now. It's open source and it's being maintained by the community. You can still play online. So you can follow along, build the models in Blender, export them, put them into Unreal Tournament, and then you can make your own maps. If you're already a Blender user, most of that stuff will be familiar to you. And then if you're someone from the gaming scene 25 years ago, you will know all the Unreal Ed stuff from, the late 90s, early 2000s. It's something you probably could have done maybe 15 years ago when Blender first came out. I think you could actually do this then. But back in those days, though, I primarily built all of my stuff out of essentially boxes. So this has been a bit of a revelation to me in the last week or so, playing around with this. Basically building stuff in Blender, importing it into Unreal Tournament, and being able to create way crazier stuff than I would have been able to do just simply building corridors and rooms and that kind of stuff. So hopefully this will be entertaining to people who don't make stuff in games, and maybe informative to people who do make stuff in games and might be interested in doing this themselves. So this is something I was working on in Blender. Doesn't look particularly interesting. It is just the interior of a cave. This went through several iterations. If I just hide this one, you can see I've got a few different pieces. The main thing here, and I'll just cut to the chase, if you're only here to figure out how to transfer stuff between one and the other, I'll just do that now so you can see. So here I've built a rocky platform thing. I've been using the textures from Unreal. The main thing to note is you need to, if you name the materials the same name as the packages in Unreal Tournament, then they'll show up on the model when you bring it into Unreal Ed. This one is in UTTech MISC Rock 2, and you use that dot notation as well. So UTTech.MISC, which is the group, and then .rock 2, which is the actual texture name. So the main thing to be aware of is Unreal Tournament and Unreal Engine 1. Their units are a bit different to something like Unity or Blender. So a cube in Unreal Tournament, like if you're making a corridor, you'd probably want to make it 256 units squared. But in Blender, that's enormous. So what I do is I build things roughly to a scale of 1. Like so. So the default cube in Blender, if I just bring one in, default cube. So the default cube by default is 2 meters cubed, right? And that roughly translates to 256 units in Unreal Tournament. So the first thing to do then is to scale this up. 256. So when I zoom out, I won't be able to see most of it because it's just too big for Blender to render by default. You can update these settings, but I think it's easier to work with a scale of 1 and then scale it up to then export than it is to try and scale everything up. So straight to the chase, we just go to File, Export, and then we choose Wavefront OBJ format. What we want to do is say selected only. If we are only, generally you do one thing at a time. I can't think of any situation where you wouldn't. So you just pick selected only, my rock, for example. Let's call it my rock. You go export. You don't need to worry about too much of these. We don't need grouping. We don't need much of this. Triangulated. Well, we could actually do a triangulated mesh. Actually, that might be better. But yeah, none of this stuff. We're definitely not using animation. The only thing you need to worry about: selected only. Leave all the scale and stuff as it is. Apply modifiers, and that's if you had like a mirror modifier or any of the Blender modifiers on here. That's obviously not going to save when you save the file. So I'll export it to be called my rock. What is this level? Hall of Giants. So we just do basically go to brush. So we're in an Unreal Tournament now. And if I just go to brush import myrock.obj, but I'm just going to bring it in as a solid mesh for now. So there you go, you can see my rock's been brought in. Because this is a complex mesh, and if you're not planning to do stuff like cut chunks out of it or modify it in any way, I'd bring this in as a semi-solid. I don't know why I've got arrows on the sides. So yeah, I've added basically this big chunky rock thing into here. So this was all built in Blender. And while you could, you know, build something using vertex editing and stuff, it's quite a complex shape. And the tools in Blender are a lot more, the tools in Blender are much better for building this kind of organic, sort of rocky stuff. I just rebuild this so you can see. You can see it incorporated into the level. So there you go. I've built a giant rock into the level. So that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know, really. The only limit is your imagination, I suppose. So for those that haven't built levels before, just quickly, I could just show you. You'll see most of the levels are built from these blocks. They're called brushes, and then they're effectively either adding to the space, meaning that, like, you know, you're building something solid, or like this one, they're cutting away. So the yellow ones cut holes in things, and then the blue ones add stuff back, and then from that your whole level is built. So this one, you can see the guy has built it now with all these various blocks to then make this bridge and stuff. But that's pretty much. I won't save this because this is a default map, but if I just show you what I have done with this one, if I just make this. So this whole level, if I just zoom out, this whole level has been built in Blender. This would be almost impossible to build if you were building it from basically these primitives here, like the cubes and the cylinders and stuff. You couldn't get an organic cave, and you definitely couldn't. I mean, okay, you could, but it would take a very, very long time to do something like, for example, I've got this this wave effect on the lava. That's all been UV mapped, effectively aligning all the textures in Blender, which you saw is much easier. If I just go back to Blender, you can see what I mean. So you can see I can directly change how this is mapped onto the surface. I can update this all very easily in the in this window here. With the Unreal Editor, not so much. If I want to change these, if I just make this, if I want to change this, I've got very limited tools to do so. I can, you know, move it around and stuff, but I can't, you know, directly map it to, I can't directly map it like I can in Blender like this. So I can just change this, you know, move this around, and that changes the whole thing, you know. So that's one other advantage to building stuff in Blender, is you can do all this, handle it all. So that's the one advantage of building something in Blender, because again, while you could do it in the editor, it would be extremely tedious to do so, especially when it comes to these organic shapes. So if I wanted to map something that's, you know, curves around like these cliff edges and stuff, that would be very, very challenging to map these. So this is a work in progress map, and as you can see, all of these shapes have all been built in Blender, so you can make a lot of organic stuff. So I've still used, so for the pyramid thing, this is still effectively blocks. So you can see I've added a sort of cone shape, and then this yellow one, I've cut out the hole in the middle, then added some detail with some doors and stuff. But that's built using the traditional methods, using all the primitives and the other tools like vertex dragging, and you've got brush clipping. But the rest of this is all effectively built in Blender, and in a modular fashion, so I can reuse some shapes. So I built these So you can see I've reused the shape here. I've added one down here and then one up here. So I built something once, and I can, in a modular fashion, sort of can use it throughout the level to then build platforms and stuff. And that's just it's a different way of working to how you typically build a level, because normally, again, you'd be building a room, corridor, room, or building sort of kind of arenas and stuff with, you know, very grid conforming primitive shapes. So this is a new thing for me. I've not really done much organic before, but definitely a lot of fun. So yeah, that's it. So all you need to remember is Blender. Make sure your object's selected, so make sure in object mode, file, export, wavefront OBJ. You can select triangulated if you want. Otherwise, Unreal Ed will do that for you anyway. Export the materials. That just keeps the names on there. So again, if you name the textures correctly, that will then show up in game when you bring it in. And then the only thing is to remember, so when you do brush, import, just pick your object, import, and then pick solid mesh if it's something like a rock. For these, which are the kind of, for these things which are effectively just a long sheet that runs around the bottom of the rock to then create this kind of wave effect. I don't know how realistic it is to have waves on lava, but that should be brought in as a non-solid mesh. Or let me just do it again, brush, import. Let's just do that one, lava ring. So you get non-solid, so that's where there are holes in the mesh. I would choose that option. So if I open that up, you can see. So that is the lava ring I've just imported there. And that's it mainly. So three things. Remember to scale things up by 256 to make sure they work in your map. Well, actually, I'll just show you this quickly. Just to show you the other way. If you wanted to build something, so say you built a prototype level just with cubes and stuff, and then you wanted to make it more organic, you can actually do the reverse of what we just did and export the level to Blender. So if I wanted to export this from Unreal Ed to Blender, I've made a box that's much bigger than the whole level here. Then I hit the intersect button, like so. Then I just go brush, export, and then the same way we did it from Blender, we just pick OBJ, do cube, file, import, wavefront OBJ again. So import our cube, leave all this. And then now, this is going to be humongous. You won't be able to see it. So we'll do the opposite. Instead of scaling it by 256, we're going to reverse that. So we need to scale this by 1 divided by 256. Right, so I've scaled that down to 1/256th of what it was. What it will do if you've got subtractive levels, i.e. you've carved a cave out or something like my other one. If I go back to my level, it's created this extra box around it. And so when I've imported it, I've got a bigger box. But what I can just do is I can just go into this, click L for linked, delete that. And then I've got my level. So you can see that's replicated, including the scaling of the textures and everything else, my geometry from the level. So I could use this as a base to then build something and then scale that up and then export it back like you saw on the first example. Hopefully that was useful. What I will do is I'll link Blender and Unreal Tournament in the video description. So if you did fancy building some levels like it's 1999, then you can do so. The game is very much still alive and being maintained to this date, so there are modern patches for modern renderers. All the other stuff like how to get your player in the level, how to do game times like capture the flag and stuff is covered by another guy on YouTube much better than I can do it, so I'll link him as well. So if you did want to build your levels using Blender, I'll link to all those videos as well, because this was really just about how you could export stuff in and out from Unreal Tournament, and then into Blender, which I wish I'd have known 20 years ago